So now I'll look at the type of goods. You've spoken about goods, you've spoken about this. Now, do we have the type of goods? What are the type of goods? They are specifically the type of goods. Now, we've already established in the beginning that goods under the contract of sale are movable goods. Therefore, immovable property or immovable goods, personal estate of a person, copyright, intellectual property, patent, they all do not fall under the category of goods in a sales contract. Therefore, what then are the type of goods we have? So, according to the Sale of Goods Act, Section 5 of the Sale of Goods Act, we have the specific goods and we have the unascertained goods. We have the specific goods and we have the unascertained goods. Now, when we talk about the specific goods, what are specific goods? Specific goods are goods identified and agreed upon at the time of a contract of sale, or as at the time the contract was made. These goods were identified. They could be identified and they were agreed upon. So now let's say that I'll be like, oh, I come to a shop and I see this particular blue pencil, beautiful. Then I'll be like, that particular pencil is what I buy. Now I have been able to identify the pencil I want, and I am agreeing that that is the kind of pencil I want to buy. So now the seller has no option than to supply me with that specific pencil. So that is a specific good. A specific good is that which is identified and agreed upon at the time of the contract of sale. Let us get that very clearly. So that is a specific good. So I come and be like, oh, let's go. I want that particular shoe you were wearing, that blue shoe with that golden bottom on it. That is the shoe I want. It is a specific good because I have identified the goods I want. And now, in the contract of specific goods, the obligation of the seller is to supply that specific good I have told him I wanted. He supplies that good, that specific good I identified. He has no option but to supply that specific good I am asking for. Now, if that is specific goods, then what are unascertained goods? We will come back to that. We will come back to the specific goods in analyzing some issues. Therefore, when we talk about unascertained goods are goods that are not identified or agreed upon at the time the contract of sale is concluded. They are not identified or agreed upon at the time the contract of sale is concluded. So now, in this, the seller can perform by using any goods that correspond with the description. If the goods originally intended to be used are no longer available, the seller can substitute others answering the same description. So now, what are the difference between the contract of specific goods and the contract of sale of unascertained goods? Now, if the thing is a contract of specific goods, now the seller has to provide, or he has to provide that specific item I am asking for. If he does not provide it, there is a breach of contract, and I can rescind the contract, or I can sue for breach of contract because that specific good I wanted was not what was supplied to me. However, if it is an unascertained good, the seller is not obliged to give me a specific good. He is obliged to give me something that corresponds to the description I am giving. We shouldn't forget that, as I said, now the unascertained goods have not been identified yet. So probably I'll be like, oh, Lesego, I need a chair. That chair, I need it to be blue. I need it to be very comfy. I need to be in a square shape. I need it to have some gold plating. You understand? In this way, since I have not really identified the specific chair I want, but I have already given a description of a chair, the seller is only obliged to give me any blue chair that corresponds to the description I have given. Any chair that corresponds to the description. He is not obliged to give me a specific chair, but any chair that corresponds to the description I'm giving him, that it should be blue, it must have a specific color, a specific coating, and that kind of things. Yes. So I hope it is clear in that regard. Thus, the buyer agrees in this regard to buy not a specific and identified item, but simply an article of any item which possesses that characteristics described to the seller. Thus, an agreement for a purchase of goods which belong to a class, and do not mind which one, as long as that one is substantially selected by the seller and it possesses the characteristics of the class that has been prescribed by the buyer. Until that selection has been made, the contract of sale still remains unascertained. So now, as per the parties of the contract, unascertained goods possess neither a present or a potential location. Basically, unless and until the parties have at least agreed, you see, they've agreed on a source of supply, the goods have no contractual existence at all. The most that can be said is that somewhere there is, or at some time, there may come into being a source of supply, which in the contemplation of either or both parties will be drawn to meet the seller's contractual obligation. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that in the contract of unascertained goods, now the buyer is not restricted to a specific location or a specific place. So far as you have given your description, and if he goes to even get it from China, from USA, from Somalia, and it meets the description you've given, there is a contract. However, there may be in the terms of a contract, maybe the buyer may stipulate that I want my items to be from Botswana alone. In that regard, I'll go to Botswana, and that will be the only place I'll go and search for any blue tail. It will only be restricted to Botswana. Therefore, I'll come to Botswana and look around if I can find any blue tail that corresponds to the description of the. Please, I hope that is also clear in that regard. So, simply put, a specific good, the goods are identified and agreed upon. Unascertained goods, they are not identified and agreed goods. The seller is obliged to supply that specific item that the buyer wants. But in the unascertained goods, the seller is just obliged to supply the goods that corresponds to the description that has been made by the buyer. This also leads us to another kind of goods called the future goods. What are future goods? Future goods are goods that are yet to be manufactured or acquired by the seller after the making of the contract for the sale of goods. This means that the goods are not yet in existence, but are yet to be acquired, by the seller. Future goods are usually unascertained goods, just as you said, but they can also be in any of the categories. So, just to make it very practical, when we say a future good, they are yet to be manufactured as at the time the contract was even being concluded. So, let's say yesterday, as I gave an example, Lesego is a farmer who plants or runs a pepper plantation or a pepper farm. Then I'll be like, Lesego, I would need some bags of pepper. Yes, so now the pepper have not yet been planted, but then I go into a contract with Lesego that now when the pepper is ready, Lesego should supply me with some bags of pepper. So now these bags of pepper that have not yet been produced or manufactured are future goods. That is something simple about future goods. So now, from what we've studied or what we have said about some types of goods, we have specific goods identified and agreed upon at the time the contract was made. Unascertained goods, those that are not identified or agreed upon as at the time the contract was made, and future goods, those that are yet to be manufactured even after the contract has been concluded. That is future goods. Yeah. So now we look at another important thing in the contract of sale. Now, determination of price of goods. Who determines the price? How can the price of goods be determined? Do we just goods to be sold like that? There are some categories or there are some ways in which the law stipulates that a price of goods should be determined. Now, the first category of how a price of goods should be determined is that where the price is stated in the contract is payable by the buyer for the goods. So now in the when in the term of a contract, it stipulates you are to pay 500 puller for the goods. Now that becomes the price, and that is what you are supposed to pay. So now, one, the price is determined where the price is stated in the contract. That it should be that it should be the price. So again, too, we can also say that where the parties have agreed in their contract on the manner in which the price is to be determined, such provisions will be binding on both parties. Now, what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that sometimes in the contract, they wouldn't really state the particular price. However, they are going to state that now we will take some things into consideration. Now we will take some things like the transport of the things. We will take into consideration the risk involved. We will take into consideration maybe where the things will be going or where it will be moving to. Now, from these things, then we will determine the price. So now that is how the price will be determined. So in this regard, the parties are just going to stipulate the manner in which the price will be determined. They are not going to emphatically stipulate the price proper, but they are going to stipulate that, oh, if we do this and we do that and we do that, then we can come to a conclusion of the price. So for instance, and let me finish with all the three categories, then I will take them one by one and try to explain them. So the third one is where there is an established course of dealing between the parties. The price which applied in their previous dealings will be used if the parties did not indicate the price in a particular transaction. Now, the first one I said was it must be stated in the contract. So now in the contract, if the price has been stated in the contract that now for this transaction we are paying 500 pula, that will be the price for the goods or for the transaction. Secondly, it can also be said that we can also agree that, oh, Lesego, now if we just give the price, probably there may be some risk. Maybe the transportation, maybe some things will happen, maybe some kind of situations may arise. So maybe after all these situations, then we can decide the price. So that's another way we can decide the price. So the price will not be stated expressly in the contract, but rather we will take into consideration the conditions that will take place. Then from that we can see that, oh, after this, then that and that, then we will decide the price. You understand? Yes. Now, that a good example is the YAS Summit, the Young African Leaders Summit that we had. You see, now there's a contract, and the contract is they are going to pay. It was listed that we are going to pay $175 for Ghana's conference. Now, the next conference will be in Nigeria, and you see, they've not brought out the price yet. Even though they are trying to make us go into a contract, but they've not brought the price yet because they are now going to consider now where are they going to lodge? The hotel lodging, maybe the transportation, maybe the place of the conference. So now taking into consideration all these things, then they can see that after these things, then we can tell you or we can agree on a price. You understand? Now the third one is also whereby it is not stipulated. Now we are also the parties may also rely on previous transactions and determine the price. Maybe in a new transaction, we didn't state the price. I asked that you provide me with 10 bags of paper. In a previous transaction of 10 bags of paper, you charged me 100 pula for 10 bags of paper. Now, in our new transaction, we didn't state the price we are going to collect. However, we are going to base it on the previous transaction that, oh, in the previous transaction, we agreed on 100 pula. Therefore, even though it's not stated, we will presume that the new transaction is also 10 bags of paper will also cost 100 pula. So that is how the prices are determined. I hope it is clear in this regard. So we have three ways we determine the price. One, when the price is determined expressly in the contract. Two, when the parties now take into consideration the conditions of it and then they later agree on the price. And three, whereby based on a previous transaction, if the new transaction does not stipulate the price, the parties may rely on the previous transaction to make that kind of transaction. So for the sake of time, I think it's already 6 o'clock. So at least we've been able to look today at some of these things. We've looked at the contract of sale. We've looked at the types of goods. We've looked at auction sale. We've looked at capacity to a contract of sale. So hopefully next time, if there's any next time, we'll try to look at the obligations created by the Sale of Goods Act, where we are going to look at the fundamental obligations, the implied conditions of a contract, the warranty, and other things, which are also very broad ones. If we say we are going to talk about it, we would spend a lot of time. We also look at the duties of a seller under the contract of sale and the fundamental obligations of a seller. We also going to look at the fundamental obligations of a buyer in the contract of sale. So for the sake of time, I would like to end here, so that based on this, if there's any question, maybe probably we take one or two, then I would kindly ask or take my leave for the program, which by now has already started. So thank you for your time, and thank you for the privilege to be with you here. Thank you for the privilege to also learn and revise, because these are things we studied some time ago, but I'm revising again, and it's still becoming so fresh. And I know we are also helping each other. So I would like to thank you for the opportunity given me. So if there's any question or if there's any contribution you would like to add, you do that. Then I would humbly take my leave this evening.
Thank you so much, my leader, Dennis Yeboah Twumasi. He's a young legal tiger in the making. He's a lawyer and advocate in the making, a student at UPSA Law School in Ghana, Accra. He's a really intelligent young man. I don't want to lie to you. When you are with Danny, you just have to sit down, take your notebook, and start taking notes. That's what I know him for, which explains why he is the person who is here with us, who has joined us for the Insightful Exchange 2022. We'll be having more sessions with him whereby he'll be teaching us about different kind of laws in different areas, so that we are people who are insightful in regard to the law and how the law operates like. In today's episode, we are focused on the business law. We are focused on the sales contract. What is a sales contract? How does it come about? What are the aspects that make up a sales contract? Who can contract? What kind of goods? How do we define the goods? And one thing that I realized is that, do you not think that if you are one of our viewers right here and you're listening to this, I would love to confirm that most of the aspects of the Ghana Sales of Goods Act are similar to ours here in Botswana. There's a whole lot of similarities. So you realize that most of the things he said here are just similar to what we have here. So I believe that you amazing leaders who are watching, who are tuned in right now, you are taking notes. If you have any question, do not forget to comment right now so that we may take your question. But I would love to highlight on some of the most important things that he said in regard to the auction sale. If you had just joined us right now, he mentioned that, the auction sale, it can be the one with a reserved price or the one without a reserved price. Whereby there's a reserved price, there's a minimum price that is considered, and a contract cannot be concluded if you pay anything less than the minimum price. And then he also went on to mention that there's an auction sale with no reserved price. That means that any price that the buyers offer to take the item that is presented with the minimum or the highest bidder has the I don't know if it's capability or what, those law terms, to be the one who gets that particular item. And then he went on to talk about the price, the consideration or the money consideration. That the price sometimes it's implied, it's written that this is the price that we're gonna be offering this item, or you're going to be taking this item for. And in some instances, the price has to be agreed upon based on the condition of the good that is being sold. And in some instances, the price also can be determined by the previous transactions that were made. So this has been a really insightful session. I have learned a lot. And there's a whole lot of things. Some I even forgot. I'll have to go over this again and learn more. So I believe that you amazing viewers who who took time from your most important activities to come in here and join us. We appreciate you. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the, the support that you are showing us in here. At this point, I invite you to go and if you really loved this session, go and follow Mr. Dennis Yeboah Twumasi on his Facebook page. Go and show him some love. Leave the comments here and let us know how it has impacted you, because I believe that you've learned that a contract or sales contract is not just a contract. There are certain things that makes it happen. With all that, we are coming to the end of our session. I don't know, do you have anything, my leader, that you'd love to share with our audience here?
Oh, no, really, but I just want to express my gratitude to them for also joining us. I'd also want them to know that it's also very good to know the law, because in every aspect of our lives, there is a law.
Yes.
Everything we do, there is law.
Yes.
Right from even religion. From the Old
law.
Testament, God even gave us the 10 Commandments
Yes.
to regulate our lives. Everything about us is the law. So it's good we learn all these things together and build ourselves up, so that at least when we go to a place, we will be able to know our rights, know our duties and responsibilities, so that we will not be found wanting. Yeah, so I just hope and I pray that we have more beautiful sessions like these. Yes, and as I told Lesego earlier before we started the session, probably maybe after this episode of the business, we may also enter into other aspects of the law. We can be looking at a lot of things, as in, for example, assault and battery. If somebody hits you, do you have any cause of action? If somebody touches your dress, do you have any form of action? Any form of all these kind of things. We get to know about the law, learn these things, and at least so that it helps us in one way or the other. So I'd like to thank you for having me. I'm very privileged and very humbled to be on this great platform, and for giving me this exposure to meet these wonderful people. I'm very grateful, and I thank you for that.
Akwaba, my leader, I'm very grateful to have you here. It was my pleasure.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate the amazing lessons we had here. Ladies and gentlemen, one wise man once said that if you want to be a great business person, you gotta know the numbers and you gotta know the law. But this does not only apply to business. As he said here, law is a very important aspect of each and every sphere of our lives. So you gotta know the law, you gotta come join us in here. As we mentioned earlier, we're going to be having more of this kind of sessions with this amazing, insightful young leader, whereby he'll be educating us, empowering us, giving us insights to do with the law. With all that, we're going to say bye. Peace. Have a lovely Saturday evening. We out.
All right.